Hero here for Umbra Games with a review of Penny Punching Princess, released April 3rd, 2018, and available physically on Nintendo Switch and also digitally on PS Vita. Penny Punching Princess is a top-down, level-by-level action RPG where you journey through with the titular princess and her Mayama stag beetle butler Sebastian as they seek revenge for the princess's father's death and subsequent loss of his kingdom. The game is divided into 8 chapters, with each having 5 stages. Each stage map has detours and off-the-path treasures waiting to be discovered, and most have multiple floors. You can take a peek at the map you're on, which is helpful when trying to find the exit, but more importantly, finding those dead ends for those chests. Your standard attack basically comes in only 2 combos. One with a big final hit while pushing the stick towards an enemy and attacking, or a quick 100 hand slap type thing while the stick is in the neutral position. The princess can also do a pushback move which drives enemies back the direction she's facing by hitting Y and B, or do an omnidirectional pushback by holding and releasing those buttons, which depletes her HP. The princess can also carry one special ability into battle, selected by equipping different sets of armor. The main hook of Penny Punching Princess, though, is using the princess's magic calculator, where you can use the money you collect in a stage to bribe enemies or relics to switch to your side. When enemies are bribed, you get to use them as abilities a limited number of times, and the stationary relics not only stop injuring you, but you can also press a button to trigger them onto foes as well. You can only have one ability or relic at any given time, and if you bribe another before you finish what you have, you'll lose it. It does take a little bit of time for the calculator to recharge, so you can't just walk in and bribe everything instead of fighting it in a given battle. Also, every battle that occurs in every level grants you a rating from D, C, B, A, and S, and it seems to directly correlate to the amount of money you pull from enemies. If you bribe them all immediately, you lose your chance for income. Every enemy has segments in their HP bar you can see. When you deplete it to that point, the word break will flash in front of them, and they'll be stunned. At this point, you can quickly spin the right stick, and money will come pouring out of them for that brief couple of seconds. So if you really want the cash and still want to bribe for attacks, the trick is to weaken enemies through all their segments before finally bribing when they have nothing left to give. Now, I played exclusively with the Switch in the docking station and used a Pro Controller. There are 2 controller modes, button and touchscreen, and I can only speak for the buttons. To use the calculator, you hold the L button. You can either choose a dollar amount, or while holding L, you can hit R, which will auto-pay to the correct amount to whatever your cursor is on. You can use the D-pad to move that cursor around, and I'm not exactly sure what tab order is between enemies. Got frustrating several times with a giant calculator obstructing half of the screen, a pile of enemies that you're trying to cycle your cursor through, all the while traps and fireballs are flying at you from everywhere. I thought at one point it was relative, but trying to tap multiple directions to try and cycle differently rarely seemed to work. Additionally, the battle ranking screen takes up that same portion, so having to sit in one place patiently until it goes away is probably the best method of not taking damage from the trap that it's obstructing. Another feature of the calculator is the Coin Miracle button, where you can choose a dollar amount to pay and get access to a random bonus. Now, I'll be honest, I did this for the tutorial to get through. I'm not sure I ever use this feature again. If you play this game and I'm somehow missing out, please let me know in the comments below. Now, there is a decent variety of enemies, but after chapter 2, you'll start to see the palette swap, fighting green imps instead of blue ones, or fighting blood onions instead of just the regular onions. Each chapter ends in a boss fight, and then you'll even see palette swaps of the bosses coming at you as regular enemies. If the princess loses all of her health, you'll start at the last exit you pass through, or if you haven't, then you'll be back at the beginning of the stage. Now, this functions as a true checkpoint because any of the chests you opened or battles you finished will have to be redone. Your penalty for death is an automatic D-ranking on the level, if you care, or I guess even if you don't. All gold in your possession at the end of a stage goes into your kingdom's coffers. There are 3 ways to regain HP in battle. The first is by finding health regeneration circles that you can pay 100 gold to unlock. Next, there's a family of heart-shaped enemies that can be bribed and used a couple of times. And finally, a few of the armor pieces have a healing or HP regeneration skill, which become available on your skill regenerations. Character progression takes place with the acquisition of skill points. Easiest and fastest way to earn additional points is through the collection of Zenigami statues found in brown chests in each level. There's a counter when you're selecting the stage to see how many you have left to find, or if you've gotten them all. You can replay the stages at any time, which is also good because the second way to earn skill points is by building additional Zenigami statues in your workshop. Every enemy you bribe becomes a citizen of the princess's rebuilt kingdom. Building these Zenigami statues requires you to have designated numbers of each type of enemy, as well as some gold expenditure. The final way to earn skill points is hitting civilian thresholds in your kingdom, 10 points when you reach 100 citizens, and an additional 10 points for reaching 300. Skill points can be put into HP, attack, defense, and frost and poison resistance, as well as a few one-off attributes, like another attack added to the combo and reduction to the calculator recharge time. For a fee of 10,000 gold, you can reset your skill point allocation at any time. The other form of progression is obtaining more and more powerful pieces of armor to equip. Armor is built the same way as the workshop Zenigami statues, requiring you to have specific enemies bribed and in the kingdom, as well as a substantial cash deposit. You only equip one armor at a time, and it not only boosts attack and defense, but as I mentioned, your skill you use in combat is set by that specific armor piece. The maximum amount of gold you can hold at a time within a stage is determined by that as well. The game does have some natural replay value, as you see you have one of 3 drakes bribed to make a piece of armor that you want, and if you're driven by stage rankings, looking and seeing a line of S rankings and then a D can push you back into it as well. Not to mention I was often low on cash, so sometimes quick runs to build up the coffers was necessary. Halfway through the game, you'll also open up a second playable character that functions a bit differently from Princess, and she also gets her own set of stage rankings, possibly providing completionists a desire to get S's on the game's 40 stages once again. One catch is she and the Princess share stat points, so it's probably going to be easier to go through as one and then the other, and then paying the 10,000 gold reset if you want to try again. Penny Punching Princess's story was fairly typical for developer Nipponichi. The humor will be fairly hit and miss as it's very Japanese in nature. Fortunately, when replaying stages, you can skip cutscenes with the press of the R button. I will say I personally didn't enjoy the story pacing because the game was kind of set up to end at Chapter 5, and then again at Chapter 6, and then again at Chapter 7, before finally coming to a close in Chapter 8. And it wasn't necessarily that I wanted the game to end, but it just felt really dragged out from a story perspective. I will say by that same point in Chapter 5 though, the continuous palette swaps, using the same couple of moves in combat, I was probably okay with it ending a bit sooner than it did. The game does feature a handful of varied environments, from forest to snow temples to fire temples, but I think sometimes even the maps may have just been palette swapped. Granted, sections were broken off, not allowing you access, so it changed the overall shape, but sometimes the same turn that ended in a dead end felt like maybe in a later level they just changed the look and used it again. Graphically, the game is soundly pixely, with bright colorful sprites and fun enemies, and the environments do look nice. Overall, the bribing mechanic made the game worth a playthrough for me, even though selecting what to bribe in the heat of battle on a controller could be a bit frustrating. The limited basic attack combos got a bit repetitive. The story pacing was kind of off, but there's plenty of replay value to collect enemies, to open the dozens of armors and workshop Zenigami statues, even though maps seemed to be reused and each enemy had 3 to 4 palette swaps, which made some of the shine wear off towards the end. Rated as a 2D action RPG, Penny Punching Princess hits a 60 out of 100 on my 0 to 100 scale, where 50 is an average game. This is Jiro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching. As always, thanks for checking out the channel. I always appreciate the subscriptions and the views. And if you hang out in the Twitterverse, please give me a shout out there. It gets a little lonely sometimes. @Umbra Games.